60% of Indians are living with hypertension, totally unaware, ignorant, innocent. We need to educate our patients because when this is the first stage, when we are able to reverse this, we can actually protect the kidneys. A structured dietary pattern can help reduce your systolic blood pressure by 8 to 10 millimeters mercury, and that can be like a drug. The case of this young man, he was just about 34 and he came to me for weight management. If you can see, his weight was really high, grade 2, 129 kilos, BMI 38, which is grade 2 obesity, with a high amount of body fat and a very big waistline. If your eating window is between afternoon to late night, that's a very, very sad way to do intermittent fasting.
Hello, thank you for tuning in. If you want to come back to this video later, just tap on the like button. It will save it to your like videos so it's easier to find. And don't forget to hit on the bell icon to get notified whenever we drop new content. Stay curious, keep learning, and see you on the inside.
Good evening, and thank you for that kind introduction, Sanika. It's a privilege to be amongst doctors, and I feel that in today's times when we talk about disease, modalities, and treatment, we are talking about nutrition so often with a lot of importance given to nutrition therapy, which goes hand in hand with pharmacotherapy. And the topic you gave me with regards to dietary strategies for hypertension and CVD risk, I think is very apt in today's time. Because as we see patients of all age groups in our own Mumbai city, in our clinic, I see that there's a lot of adiposity and there's a lot of metabolic derangement that I see. And here again, hypertension, if it is not looked at and if you're not able to stall it with the right diet modification and lifestyle strategies, then we are in for more and more trouble. I think I'll go ahead with the presentation. So I think what we need to do is we need to really look at this epidemic of rising hypertension and how it's really impacting the risk for cardiovascular disorders. So we've seen that it's almost a 1.4 billion worldwide occurrence, and high blood pressure often remains unnoticed. As I often see that a lot of youngsters who come to me have never ever seen their blood pressures recordings or been written. But when they come in for, say, diet and weight management, I first, after their nutrition assessment, I look at their blood pressures and I find that almost 30 to 35% of adult hypertensives, almost one every three adult who comes into my clinic does have high blood pressure. And a concern is the younger generations, which is showing a lot of these derangements, which is thanks to bad diets, lot of stress, lack of exercise, irregular lifestyles. So we know that 60% of Indians are living with hypertension, totally unaware, ignorant, innocent. And we know that dietary patterns are the reasons why we see such higher blood pressures in today's times. So when you look at the famous Framingham study, what we have seen is that years back, they did talk about diastolic blood pressure being a very strong predictor of CVD risk. And we know that as age rises, this leads to arterial sickness and hence CVDs. So when you're looking at blood pressure, I feel that often, when you are even at 135 by 90, and the patient says, the doctor who's seen me in my neighborhood never ever told me about this being on the higher side. But I feel that we need to educate our patients because when this is the first stage, when we are able to reverse this, we can actually protect the kidneys because this study also showed that patients with 140 by 90 of mercury, yeah, these are showing an annual decline in their estimated GFR, which is your kidney function status, and there is a 5% risk in early kidney disease. So we need to worry about poor lifestyles and rising blood pressures if we need to correct both CVD and renal health issues. So we're looking at elevated blood pressure and the risk of end-stage renal disease. It is seen that if you can help control this elevated blood pressure, we can inevitably really help to save the kidney from further deterioration and say the need for dialysis or any other kidney problems. So I would like to start, my presentation with a case of this young man. He was just about 34 and he came to me for weight management. If you can see, his weight was really high, grade 2, 129 kilos, BMI 38, which is grade 2 obesity, with a high amount of body fat and a very big waistline. When I did some blood parameters, I found that he had very low D3, very low B12, which is severe deficiency. And he also showed insulin resistance. He had pre-diabetes. He had early hypertension with 130 by 99 mm of Hg, insulin resistance, dyslipidemia. He had HbA1c 5.9, which is pre-diabetes again. When you look at his lipid parameters, he had atherogenic lipid ratios. He also had high uric acid, high homocysteine, and inflammation with a high CRP. Thankfully, his kidney function looked normal. So, this young man with 10 to 12 months of therapy, what did I see in him? I saw that I could bring his weight down in those 12 months by almost 25 kilos. And with this weight loss or weight management, and with the right supplementation, the right kind of diet, we were able to reduce his pre-diabetes to normal HbA1c. We saw a reduction in his cholesterol and a better cholesterol ratio, a reduction in uric acid, homocysteine, and inflammation. So this is the story of right understanding, right assessment, and putting him on gradual diet changes with persuasion to pursue regular exercise, because this young man was really passive, working long hours, so avoiding exercises and eating frequently outside. That meant that he was really having foods rich in, say, bad cholesterol, sugars, and additives. So blood pressure numbers, what they mean. I'm sure all doctors here know that normal is 120 by 70, 80. And we do see elevated levels of 120, 130. And then we really start caring after the person touches 140. But I feel that if we can, start with diet modifications at 130 by 85, that is where it starts. I have seen that there can be a wonderful reduction by 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury, and thereby we can reduce on the cardiometabolic risk and not start with medicines at the very start. So a structured dietary pattern can help reduce your systolic blood pressure by 8 to 10 millimeters of mercury, and that can be like a drug which you see normally given to patients. So I feel that if we can make the person understand what has gone wrong with his lifestyle and change his diet, this can be a wonderful way to help him go on the way to better fitness and health. So we know that hypertension or blood pressure has got modifiable and non-modifiable factors. So we can change while we can, right? So modifiable includes high salt intake, excess overweight or obesity status, physical inactivity, unhealthy diets, and we can try to help a person understand reduction of alcohol and tobacco use. But what we can't change is the genetic predisposition. We can't change a person's age. We can't even change the gender. And we know that women, when they are perimenopausal, postmenopausal, they become 4 times, at risk of hypertension as compared to men. So lifestyle modification with the right dietary intervention can help lower blood pressure, hence reduce CVD risk and delay and reduce medication dependence. So we looking at a typical Indian plate, not say regularly, but if given a chance, like I was on a holiday recently and I found that all those people along with me at that resort would just jump on all those sweet dishes, the desserts, the fried samosas, the puris, the oily curries, and there was very few who were looking out for salads. So I would say we need to worry about the refined carbs, the fried, salty, high fat, high trans fat foods, high sugary foods, because these elevate blood pressure and CVD risk. And we need to look at, what can be better on our plates. A diet which can have a better fiber content, which can have more vegetables, more fruits, which can give us better antioxidants, potassium, and healthier fats. If this is unless we don't understand what foods to choose. So let's look at how we can do this. So we can look at different macronutrients and macronutrients which can make or mar your plate and hence your health status. So looking at the different dietary patterns which nutritionists and researchers, research scientists have been doing in the last, say, 3 decades, I have seen the DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet, the Nordic diet. These are better diets compared to low carbohydrate, Atkins, low GI, portfolio and paleolithic, because it is not always possible to look at these diets. So what I have seen is that if we can look at the DASH diet, yeah, we can and make the person, and I will show you in the course of my lecture how we can make this DASH diet more Indianized and suit our foods which are available locally and in season. Because a diet which is going to be using more of wholesome foods can help us reduce systolic blood pressure from 3 to 7 points and also diastolic blood pressure. And the Nordic portfolio low salt diets, which are again based on wholesome foods, natural foods, lesser processed foods, lesser sugars, lesser, you can say, polished carbs, these can also help you reduce blood pressure levels. So when we are looking at evidence-based diet therapies and strategies, what we always do, being a nutritionist, I always check the person's weight. And if the person is overweight, I would tell them that, look, let's work on reducing your weight gradually. It shouldn't be drastic. It can be always like 1 kilo every 2 weeks. That means half a kilo or 1 pound every week. And that's not so difficult. So we need to control on sodium, ideally not more than 1.5 grams per day, which will translate to not more than 3/4 to 1 teaspoon of salt per day. Dietary modifications can be a diet which can include good amounts of raw vegetables, fruits, low-fat dairy, and reduce saturated fats. We need to increase our natural potassium foods, which are fruits, vegetables, and certain cereals and millets, and reduce on alcohol. So we need to look at the macronutrients. Now, for those who need to understand what are macros, in macros we have got proteins, healthy carbs, and healthy fats. So first, I would want to emphasize on proteins, because I feel that we Indians are really lacking in proteins. Whenever I look at a person's dietary call, I find that it's just about, say, one small cup or a katori of curds or 1 or 2 bowls of dal, and that they say is good protein. I would say that is not even meeting 50% of your protein requirements. So there are enough trials, which like the OmniHeart trial, the Intermap trial, which were done in different countries and based on more than 10,000 patients. It has been seen that wherever the protein was about 20 grams, which we Indians normally sport, there is a higher risk to higher blood pressures, and we need to better our protein intakes to more than 40 to 60 grams per day. And again, we need to focus more on our veg sources. So we need to understand that we need to control our carbs, because we are largely a very carb happy nation. We like our sugars, sweets, mithais, rice, and polished carbs, which is maida, rotis, breads, burgers, pizzas. So we need to replace certain carbs with good first class complete proteins or combination proteins if we want to cut down on the waistline and hence the blood pressure. So looking at the importance of the ratio of omega-3 and omega-6, it has been seen that today our diets are highly westernized, and westernized diets are very, very rich in omega-6 and 3 PUFAs, which are based on Western diets, because we Indians have loved and have learned to accept breads, biscuits, and cookies so explicitly in our daily diets. I do not see a single person saying that I do not have a biscuit a day. Almost every person will say I would have a biscuit, a cookie a day, or a cake to have celebrations. So this is where we are really, pushing our omega-3 to omega-6 ratio in the adverse way. So dietary fats, let's look at what is good and what is bad and what can help your heart health. So we know that saturated fats are your meats, the dairy and certain oils, and the trans fats which come in through hydrogenation. So we have a lot of vanaspati ghee and a lot of these farsans and mithais which are made from sunflower oils and vanaspati ghee, which can lead to trans fats in our dietaries. and can lower HDL, which is the good cholesterol, and raise LDL. And this can lead to arterial stiffness, chronic inflammation, and insulin resistance because they are again linked to increasing your waistline. So we look at MUFA and PUFA. We know that, of course, olive oil, avocado, nuts can help us improve on the HDL ratio and build on the omega 3. So those who can eat fish, well, they need to have at least 450 grams of fish per week. So like 1 or 2 slices, at least say every second day. But those who can't need to have a lot of flax seeds, walnuts, because we need to build on this alpha linoleic fatty acid which is required. So we need to build our EPA and DHA at least 300 milligrams, which can come in from seeds, nuts, fish, and certain legumes. If I look at the oils, because a lot of times I'm asked which oil is good, I would say start putting an emphasis on different oils, lesser oils, and you could look at a combination of mustard, groundnut, sesame, olive oil, in some cases rice bran and coconut oil and soybean oil. But we need to reduce on sunflower, palm oil because these are highly inflammatory. So we need to worry about dietary fats because OmniHeart trial and the meta-analysis of different diets have shown that if our diets are higher in MUFA, we can make a sizable impact on our blood pressures. So, what can be recommended? We need to have almonds, walnut, pistas, but for those who feel these are costly, I would recommend at least 2 spoons of roasted peanuts. Avoid salted peanuts because salt would definitely add to the sodium content. So I would repeat, use roasted or boiled peanuts, never raw, because raw peanuts won't let the good fats come your way because of the anti-inhibitory factors therein. We can look at inclusion of at least 1 to 2 teaspoons. See, 5 grams is the teaspoon. So I would recommend we could bring in 2 teaspoons of say till, black and white, flax seeds, and a spoon or 2 of sunflower pumpkin seeds. For those who can get chia seeds and kalonji, just about a teaspoon or 2 per day, add it to your water or add it to your fruits can make a big difference to your health. So as I was just saying, we can look at including at least 1 tablespoon, this is 15 grams of nuts, which could be to 10 almonds or 4 half walnuts or 2 Brazil nuts, because see, all these nuts, besides the healthy fats and the MUFA exchange, would also give us a lot of magnesium, selenium, and zinc, apart from proteins and fiber, and which can make a good difference to your heart health, besides reducing blood pressure and weight. Looking at fiber, the fiber is one component which is missing when our diets are very rich in polished carbs. So fiber comes under your complex carbohydrates. So we Indians need to emphasize on fiber, both soluble and insoluble, and we need to have at least 30 grams per day. Now this is very possible if we can have at least 200 grams of raw vegetables per day and 2 to 300 grams of cooked vegetables, besides 2 fruits a day. Not difficult, right? So we can look at a heart healthy diet plan for reducing blood pressure and improving on your cardiovascular disease status. So we need to reduce the meats and the sweets and the meats. We need to build on good proteins. For those who are non-vegetarians, can have fish apart from chicken, lean meats, eggs, cheese, low fat curds, Greek yogurt. You can add chia while setting your curd, which is there on my YouTube. You can check out those recipes. We need to have fish, but do not fry the fish, because I find that when I ask, how do you have your fish, to my patients, I often find that they have it fried or deep fried. When you deep fry a fish, that becomes atherogenic and not cardio friendly. So we need to just marinate and cook with some vegetables, or you can follow my recipes on the YouTube. Please reduce on your prawns, shrimps, and lobsters because these are higher in triglycerides. So we need to look at fish like your rawas, surmai, ikru, your tuna. You look at your snappers, pomfret, and for those who are having bhekti, rohu, those are good fishes and they are having a good amount of MUFA. When you look at fruits and vegetables, I repeat myself here, we need to have at least 400 grams of vegetables, half raw, half cooked, at least 2 to 3 different fruits, different colors. When you look at cereals, we need to have cereals which are not processed. So bread becomes processed, lesser in fiber. We need to go back to our chapatis, bhakris, and millets. And we need to be physically active and we need to enjoy people. We need outings. So we will look at how the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, and the plant-based diets can make a difference to our heart health. So yeah, looking at dietary factors, other dietary factors apart from the macros, we look at vitamins and minerals. We look at omega-3. So a lot of studies have shown that supplementation can have an impact and can reduce blood pressure levels. But because you require high dosage and some patients are not able to digest, they may have certain side effects or allergies. So we may have to not give them, but we can give it. I would always suggest that build it into your diet by using flax seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, and your peanuts and your almonds and walnuts. Looking at fiber supplements, here again, if you look at bettering your diet with raw vegetables, fruits, and unprocessed cereals, will get good fiber. But for those who are not able to, can look at supplementing fibers from what's available in the market. So around 5 grams a day can help, but do not combine fiber with the meals because fiber with the meal can reduce on your micronutrient absorption. When looking at calcium supplementation, there were studies, but they were not very justifiably strong in their impact. So I would say look at the person's calcium status before you give a calcium supplement because extra calcium can do more harm than good. Looking at magnesium again, I would look at seeds and nuts and leaves, leaf vegetables for giving you magnesium because magnesium can have an impact on your hormones which can make you more calm. The melatonin which comes in towards the evening. We're looking at carbs. I would say look at carbohydrates which are not polished. I would say look at brown rice, look at millets, look at jawar, bajra, barley as compared to maida and breads. I would say sugars, bring down the sugars because higher sugars, higher, high GI foods can be increasing waistlines and weight and increase BP. So lowering this can help you. Look at the type of fats, reduce fat fats, increase your omega-3s and MUFAs. So looking at one more case study of a 46-year-old woman who came to me for weight management, I found that she had a lot of visceral fat, which is fat around the abdomen, and she had early hypertension, she had pre-diabetes, and she was already on medication for cholesterol and hypothyroidism. And her blood works showed me that she had high uric acid and CRP levels, and once again, her kidney functions was fine. But she had a very, very low level of vitamin D and B12. Friends, we need to work on vitamin D and B12 because these are two micronutrients which can impact a person's health status, immunity status. It can help your liver, it can help your pancreas to work better. So when this lady, stayed back with me for almost 6 months, yeah, we were able to bring her weight down by 10 kilos. So this was a slow, gradual weight loss, not going more than half a kilo every 10 days, so 1.5 kilo per month, right? So we had reduction in body mass index, which is BMI, body fat. So I always would tell, my doctor friends, just don't look at BMI, look at body fat and look at waistlines because here we need to address adiposity, which is visceral adiposity. If we can look at reducing the waistlines for men less than 90, women less than 80, this is for Indians especially, we can really work on their cardiometabolic status. So improving on vitamin D, B12, the right supplementation, reducing the blood pressure from 130/87 to 110/70, bringing down her pre-diabetes to normal HbA1c of 5.1, and reducing her atherogenic lipid profiles to less than 2, reducing blood uric acid and CRP levels was a wonderful, successful case. And we then requested her doctor, because she was an online case, we told her doctor that please let's now reduce her drugs which she was taking for cholesterol. And she was weaned off And then there was a further reduction on her thyroid medication as well. So we look at salt and hypertension. Is salt dietary reduction worth the effort? I would say yes, because enough studies have shown that when the dietary salt intake is reduced, we can delay or prevent the incidence of antihypertensive drugs. We can facilitate blood pressure reduction, and we can help in cost cutting, because I feel today our Indian population is spending a lot of money on helping them overcome the CVD morbidity mortality. So yes, how much salt should one take in a day? I would say not more than a teaspoon. I would say aaj se ek chammach kam, which is a very famous tagline by FSCI a few months back. So when we look at our own recalls of our patients, and studies have shown that Indians are known to have more than 2.5 teaspoons of salt per day. And all of the salt doesn't come in through the salt in the food. This salt is coming in with a lot of your puppets, pickles, sauces, processed foods, and restaurant foods. So we all love our farsans and our sweets and all our processed packaged foods, which are higher not only in sodium chloride, which is salt, but also in salt additives like your sodium benzoate, which is a preservative. Then you have MSG, which is monosodium glutamate, again all sodium compounds. So we need to worry about the fast rising consumption, the increase in the consumption of ultra processed foods, because studies have shown that higher consumption of ultra processed foods does lead to an increased risk of hypertension. So we need to understand how we can control this, lucrative business of producing more and more ultra processed packaged foods, which are fast foods, which are low in nutrition density. I mean, they have lesser amounts of fiber, vitamin, minerals, and high amounts of saturated fats. So we need to understand this hidden danger that comes in from processed packaged foods, because a systematic review has shown in the recent Lancet publication that there's a 25% rise in type 2 diabetes, depression, obesity, overweight, all-cause mortality, and CVD risk is up by almost 18%, because we Indians are so fond of ultra-processed packaged food. So we need to read food labels. We need to understand terms like sodium chloride, monosodium glutamate, sodium nitrate, sodium benzoate. All these add to your sodium load. We need to choose more of fresh as compared to processed packaged foods. We need to have more of whole grains. You look at brown rice, whole wheat chapatis as compared to breads. We need to have our millets like jawar, bajra come in more often, barley, or even you can look at buckwheat. These are good pseudo cereals to use. Prepare more of foods at home. Enjoy home cooking. Involve the family in shopping for the family, and reduce this fatafat ordering on Zepto and all those apps. So we look at beyond salt. We need to also worry about the potassium, because potassium can counteract the impact of sodium on BP, magnesium, and even calcium. So sodium, the potassium paradox. I am not talking about the low sodium salt with high potassium. I'm talking about food. So when we can have foods high in potassium, we can counteract adverse impact of sodium by promoting vasodilation, reducing the risk of strokes, arrhythmias, improving nerve transmission and muscle contraction and electrolyte balance, and we can improve kidney function as well, and reducing the formation of kidney stones. So now, next important thing which I'm really concerned about is this high propensity or attraction towards sugars. It is not just your sucrose, which is a table sugar, but this high amount of sucrose coming in from HFCS foods. This induces insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia, and hence weight gain. It stimulates your sympathetic nervous system. It reduces blood vessel flexibility, increases residual blood flow. So blood pressure, inflammation, all of these. Why? Because we Indians are so fond of double shakar in chai, and then we have our cold drinks. We have this craze for having fruit juices coming in packages. So hidden sugars in all these colored beverages, granola bars, your flavored yogurts, and your ketchups and your sauces. We need to worry about all these things. So when I'm looking at foods and antioxidants, I would say let's look at certain foods available in our country like broccoli. Our citrus fruits like oranges now it's in season. We also have cherries and strawberries coming in soon, and bell peppers, green, red, yellow. We can look at the vitamin C content. We can look at scavenging, yeah, all our free radicals and preserving our nitric oxide, which is so important to control blood pressure, reducing oxidative stress because all the sulforaphanes and vitamin C, vitamin E, beta carotene, all the other phytochemicals which come in from apples, tomatoes, watermelon, papaya, black tea, green tea. I would repeat black tea, green tea. I'm not recommending your brewed kadak chai with milk and sugar. No, no, it is green and black tea with water. You can add cinnamon, you can add lime to increase on the anti-inflammatory impact of these green and black teas. We can look at spinach, other leafy vegetables like cholai. Now winters are the season for leafy vegetables. We can look at including beet and beet juice made from fresh beet along with amla, again a very very loaded vitamin C and phytochemical rich fruit in season. We can look at seafood not fried. We can look at whole grains, soaked nuts, legumes to be soaked and sprouted. So these can help increase the phytochemicals, the antioxidants, and vitamins like vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, which can all work as your antioxidants and reduce the oxidative damage. So we need to also look at alcohol and caffeine. I often find that today it is not just the boys, it is the girls who are so happy drinking and saying cheers. And I would say that not just the American Heart Association, but also Indian and other associations which are looking at cardiac health are saying that not more than a drink for women per day and for men 2 drinks. But I would say if you're not drinking, we can best stay, tea happy people because we need to not fall to such, faulty ideas of drinks and, de-stressing. It doesn't help. Drinks, and I always see a higher waistline, a higher cause to steatosis, which is again very commonly seen in today's young and old. So habitual caffeine can develop tolerance, but I would say people who are sensitive, including me, I can't have a coffee after 4 because it disturbs my sleep. So I would say that for coffee lovers, try to reduce it to less than 400, so less than 4 cups of coffee a day. And for drinks, I would say not more than 2 drinks in the week for men, and for women not more than 1 drink. And looking at 14 grams of pure alcohol, you look at beer 350, wine 150, and spirits 45. So we need to be more alert and more aware. So diet therapies, being a nutritionist, I would say it is more than 36 years now in this December that I have been able to convince people to modify their diets, modify their lifestyles, and look at reducing their morbidities apart from weight and improving on better health, better fitness with lesser dependence on drugs. So populations wide generalized diets cannot be given impractical. I would say you need to have a personalized, individualized strategy which can help you based on what are your food habits, what are your food choices, what's your familial risk, and then we can work on improving on these diseases. We need to also work on the circadian rhythm. What does it mean? It is a sleep-wake cycle. So one study done on nurses showed that nurses, when they work round the clock, and those working in the night shifts were more at risk of blood pressure elevations and cardiac risk. So we need to work on sleep, because if it is disturbed and if you're sleeping late, not sleeping well, poor sleep quality, or if you feel I can be awake till 2 in the night and wake up late, then you are certainly, messing up with your circadian rhythm and hence your body clock. So this is one more case of a young man who came to me. He was a night shift worker and he came to me with one stent. He was just about 36. And what was concerning is that apart from visceral adiposity, hypertension, grade 2, he was on diabetes drugs, he was on medicines for cholesterol with one stent, and he also had grade 3 fatty liver with insulin resistance and uricemia. But when this young man reduced some weight, say, he lost a good 18 kilos, with me and this was quick in 4 months because he was warned by his cardiac surgeon if he doesn't lose weight, he will come back for more stents. So that made him lose weight. So I think the fear psychosis put him in, and he became a wonderful guy. He worked on his right food choices, and we could see all these changes. See, look at his HbA1c from 7.4 to 5.9, better cholesterol ratio, reduction in your uric acid levels, better vitamin D and B12, and he was on the road to recovery. So when I'm looking at what is it that is making our, youngsters obese at a young age, it is the digital screen time. And again, this increase in waistlines, weight, dependence on digital screen time, not only for work, study, and leisure, it is giving hypertension at a very, very young age. We are looking at adolescents, college going, school going kids with higher risk to cardiometabolic illnesses. I think high time we worked on even this. So we need to increase our physical activities. All of us need to put in at least 150 minutes. That means just about 30 minutes a day of brisk walking, cycling, swimming. If you like a sport, so you can go in for twice in a week on a weekend. You may look at yoga, pranayams to build on your, cardiac rehabilitation. Because I often find that when you do deep breathing, looking at Anulom Vilom, looking at Brahmari, looking at all these lovely pranayamas with stretches along with walks and wearing weights and walking with dance can go a long way in reducing your weight, waistline, blood pressures, improve on HDL, which is the good cholesterol, reducing LDL cholesterol and triglycerides. So there was one more study I found very interesting where I found that gut dysbiosis is linked to hypertension. So what Tao Yang and team saw that when they found that minocycline was able to rebalance the dysbiotic hypertension gut microbiota by reducing on the firmicutes and bacterial D ratio. So they have shown that high blood pressure may be the reason of bad gut microbiome. That means you disturbed it. Now, what is the gut microbiome? It is your use of high saturated, polished foods which are low in fiber. Friends, it is the fiber which is the prebiotic to improving on your gut microbiome. So, if you want your good bacteria to be active and working and helping you in controlling your blood pressure and cholesterol, we need to give the body a lot of prebiotic bacteria with foods which can have probiotics like your curds and fermented foods like idlis, and also your vinegar based pickles like when we have our, I still do it like my mother would do it. She would just put carrot or beet and certain vegetables in vinegar and with mustard, let it ferment. So that would give you a lot of probiotic bacteria. The kanjis which our mothers made, I still make it with keeping some beet with some vinegar water in the sun, or keeping your lightly made gruels with say jawar or rice flour with a spoon of curd all night, and that kanji can be had every morning. That can improve the gut microbiome, can help your B12 levels go up and help with better health. So one more thing, I wanted to talk about was our young and old, not just rural, it's also the urban population which is having a lot of these gutkas, pan masalas, hookahs, and they say this is hookah is not at all, sad, but I would say there are studies which are linking your hookahs to higher levels of blood pressure and weight and disturb sleep. So we need to understand how we can use the DASH diet for our Indian consumers, because it is the ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, and National Nutrition, which we nutritionists are all members of, along with the Indian Dietary Association, which are recommending that salt should be less than 5, that is 1 teaspoon per day, try and reduce the use of pickles, papads, achars. You need to have more of unprocessed millets, flours, soaked sprouted pulses, fruits, vegetables, and improve lifestyle for stage 1 of hypertension. We need to at least give that diet and better lifestyle 3 to 6 months before we go on drugs, because this can reduce a lot of unnecessary medical load. Because I have seen today that when patients come to me with 3 to 4 drugs to control blood pressure, I feel this is so sad. Because after that it will lead to a lot of harm on the kidney function and higher risk to the kidney health, which means lesser GFRs, higher creatinines, and the need for dialysis. So before we go into all those sad things, I think what we can do is we can introduce the DASH diet by increasing our unprocessed grains, unprocessed your brown rice, your barley, your unsieved flours, which are having more fiber. Vegetables, I would say bring in at least 1 cup of leafy vegetable per day. You can make it like a palak paneer, or you can make it like a chutney, you can make it like a soup. You can add it to your chicken or fish like a gravy, but use the leaves because leaves give you fiber, vitamin A, vitamin C, and a lot of micronutrients. Also, leafy vegetables give you alpha linoleic fatty acid, which converts to omega 3 in the body. We need to have fruits. So, I would say, what's a serving of fruit? One serving is 50 grams. So I would say having one big apple, say which is about 150 to 200 grams. See, 1 kilo has say 5 apples. That means 200 grams per apple, or 200 grams per pear or per guava. That's enough to give you a lot of fiber, a lot of vitamins, a lot of phytochemicals. We need to have milk. Milk can be made into curds or buttermilk, and you can try adding your flax seeds powder into your buttermilk with along with cumin seeds, because cumin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds can become wonderful way to add on to prebiotic fiber, omega 3, improving on your protein, and it can help building on healthy gut microbiome. Those who are non-vegetarians can include 150 to 200 grams of lean meats, poultry, fish, and at least one egg a day. But if you are having higher BPs, don't go beyond one whole egg. Then you can add more whites apart from one whole egg. I would say bring in your pulses and legumes. See, those who are non-vegetarians bring in like 30 grams, like 1 katori of dals or sprouts. Those who are vegetarians, we need to have at least 3 bowls. So you can have 1 bowl of sprouts into your salad, and you can have 2 bowls of your lachka dal or your chana chole had whole with the skin. Avoid the sugars to not more than a tablespoon in the week. That's how low it should go. That means not more than half a teaspoon per day. So, what's the way forward? We need to look at bringing in all our knowledge and fixing the knowledge gaps. We need to work on patients individually, and we need to bring in, state level and countrywide changes in our primary health setups. We need to have higher taxation on tobacco and sugar sweetened beverages. We need to have more regulating and taxation on processed packaged foods. We need to ban our trans fatty acids. We need to have better environments to promote physical activity, more gardens. Schools should become the first base where the child learns the importance of healthy diets and increase physical activity. We need to share this, because I feel that we need to shift not just adult only. We need to bring our interventions to prenatal, because I would say work on the preconception young woman. We need to work on the pregnant lady. We need to work on the young child. We need to work on the adult and the elderly. So, food first to manage blood pressure and cardiovascular risk. Food today is not just about taste, it is about long term survival and quality of life. Let's create awareness and protect our families, patients, and communities through informed food choices. Thank you for your patient listening, and I'm open for all questions.
Thank you so much, Mom, for your presentation. We have a couple of questions that have come in during the presentation. You can wonder. Uh, Dr. Lokesh Gupta
asking about whey protein. Whey protein. Okay. So, Dr. Lokesh, if you are looking at whey, I would say the whey protein is made when you curdle your milk after boiling by adding either vinegar or lime juice. That's the whey protein, whey water. But those are looking at supplementation. I would say for those Indians who can't manage too much of proteins by virtue of diet modifications, can look at 30 grams per day, and that can be had with water or with a fruit blend, or can be added to your soups, but avoid a lot of colors and etc which come in whey. Look at pure neat whey protein supplements, and 30 grams should be enough. Salt sensitive, not salt sensitive hypertension. Dr. Kapadia. Yeah, I think this is a good question. I would say that, when we have patients, who come to me with higher blood pressure levels, like I had, one young man aged, say, around 45, and he was on 4 medications. And he wasn't aware about what was the salt that he need to reduce. So I told him to gradually cut on all those foods which bring in extra salt, from your papads, pickles, achars, and all those things. And then I told him, don't put more than 1 teaspoon per day. So that means like about 1/4 teaspoon for say breakfast, 1/4 lunch, 1/4 dinner. And then we found him, bringing down his blood pressure, and the doctors who were taking care of him have reduced his 4 drugs to 2 drugs, and he also has lost about 10 kilos because he was into a lot of binge eating and processed fast foods. I hope that answers your question. Rock salt, black salt, I would say no. For Indians, we need to have iodized salt because a lot of studies were done on the lack of iodine in our food, including my own PhD work was on iodized salt. And I found that while working on school children, when I analyzed their diets and their urine, content of iodine, I found that they were low. And when they were given iodized salt, because 1 teaspoon of iodized salt just about gives you 150 microns of iodine, and that's enough to help you with your health, because iodine is so important for mental health and also to prevent cretins and deformations in pregnancy. Black salt, rock salt can be only used at times for your charts for taste, but to replace your iodized salt with rock salt is not a very clinically sound decision. Refined oils harmful. Desi ghee, cow ghee, A2 cow ghee, coconut oil, Dr. Purohit. Yeah, I think what I would recommend is that when I see my own patients with increased waistlines and hypertension and higher cholesterol, and when I look into diet recalls, I found that a lot of us have gone in for sunflower, safflower oils, and even coconut oils without realizing that what is the impact on our lipid status. So I would say if the lipid status is good enough with you consuming your A2 cow ghee or desi ghee and coconut oil, then it's okay. You can look at improving your holistic diet, like high fiber and unprocessed foods, good sleep, exercise. But if you have a dyslipidemia and you're looking at drugs to control blood pressure and cholesterol, then I would say you should look in for a combination of your groundnut oil with mustard oil and sesame oil. If you can afford it, buy the extra virgin olive oil. Look at including, I would say, nuts. I would say if it is groundnut, make it roasted and boiled. Do not have it raw. And you can have your soaked almonds with the skin, because you will get fiber. You will get your walnuts. You can look at Brazil nut for extra selenium along with omega 3. But I would say don't just go on pure ghee. If your lipid profiles are not looked at first, please assess your patient's lipid profiles, find out the balance, whether it is atherogenic or normal, and then recommend such things. I would say a combination. And I would say apart from which oil, I would say look at controlling the oils and fats to not more than half a kilo per person totally. It means your oil, ghee, your butter, musca, malai, not more than half a kilo per person per month. And reduce on weight. Salt sensitive. We've done that, right?
We have a question on keto diet. Can you please guide on?
To diets. I again would say, if you would look at what a keto diet entails, you would start wondering how many days or months I can sustain it. And if you have to keto diet, which is like having very very low carbs and high fat, very restrictive on fruits and vegetables, you should first look at your liver health, your pancreas status, your diabetes status, and you can see what's the kind of help you have in the house to make those kind of recipes. Because you have to have those keto atta, which is your almond flour or defatted peanut flour, and it is a lot of problem. So I don't see patients, doing it for more than a month. And what happens in most cases is that when they stop with the keto diets, they'll end up with excess weight gain, rebound weight gain. And I have seen such cases coming up with high incidences of fatty liver and cholelithiasis. So one must weigh the pros and cons, what's possible, what's doable, how much can I sustain. Can I first look at doing a diet which corrects the amount of carbs, proteins, and fats, along with the inclusion of micronutrients? What is my diet? You say, I would say, how early do I start eating and how early can I stop eating? What's my sleep timing? How's my sleep quality? Whether I'm able to have enough exercise? I would look at the holistic scene, the diet quality, the importance of complex carbs, high fibers, your unprocessed grains, you look at your protein, because a lot of our Indians are low on protein and fiber. So, looking at keto, Atkins, intermittent fasting, I would say that should be the last. And that again, agar karna bhi hai, you need to be under a qualified nutritionist who can look at your lab test and then advise you what can be done more, what can be done less. Otherwise, it can be really very, sad for overall health and future health. Because I see a lot of cholelithiasis coming in these patients.
Yes, ma'am. Similarly, for intermittent fasting, can you please comment on?
Intermittent fasting again, I see patients who, when I look at what they've been eating, they feel that I have a license to eat whatever. So I can have ice cream, paratha, lacha paratha, seekh kebab, samosas, wafers. So I'm just having lesser, meals or 2 meals a day. But I would say if your eating window is between afternoon to late night, that's a very, very sad way to do intermittent fasting. If you have to do it, have your eating window from morning, 8 to 9 until 6, 7, and not after 7. And look at the right kind of diets. You must look at including complex high fiber foods, good protein intake, healthy fats, fruits between those 2 meals you're going to have in your eating window. I hope that helps, Dr. Gupta.
Yes, ma'am. Another question here is on antihypertensive drugs like ACE inhibitors or ARBs, which predispose hyperkalemia. Is there any reduction of potassium intake from fruits advised?
Yes, yes, I always feel that what comes naturally. See, when we often ask our patients, yeah, doctors, about including of fruits, they say on a weekend, or they would say we'll have it late night. I would say, we are really warped because we need to have a lot of fruits in the morning hours, because fruits give you your sugars, they give you fibers, they give you micronutrients, they give you phytochemicals, they give you antioxidants. So have your fruits like the banana, you have your now in season strawberry, oranges, you can look at amla, even avocado whenever possible, because now avocado is being grown in our country. It's again the only fruit having mufa. So it can really be helpful. We can have your black grapes. We can have pomegranate, again very rich in resveratrol and anthocyanin. So I would say look at improving your fiber intake with fruits along with micronutrients.
Yes, ma'am. We have a couple of more questions. A lot of questions about proteins and protein supplementation.
So I would say for people who want to go on complete diet therapy, what they could do is they could look at, now I would give you, simple say, 5 to 7 protein serves in the day, how you can manage. So those who are looking at reducing on the fat content, they can look at your milk, wherein you can remove one malai. Don't add milk, don't add water to milk. That is the wrong way. Then you will have lesser proteins. I would say when you're looking at 150 ml of milk, which is 1 cup, that gives you 6 grams of first class complete protein. Just remove one malai, one fat layer, or you can have like 50 to 100 grams of paneer made from, again, that low fat milk made at home. You can just boil milk and add lime or vinegar and make it into your homemade paneer. You can look at sprouts. I would say, favor sprouts to your yellow dals, which are polished and low in fiber. So what you could do is you can take like a fistful, which is like 30 grams. That gives you around 8 grams of protein. You can soak it, let it sprout. It's very easy. You can use moong. You can look at kulit. See, kulit is horse gram, which I feel that we Indians are like forgetting. And I would say we must use kulit more often along with mung and brown chana. So we are very fond of what the West does. We like now the chickpeas, which comes into hummus. I would say you can make it from your brown chana as well. So use the brown chana, the moong, the watana, which is your pea protein, which is now being sold as pea protein isolate and rice protein. I would say look at combination of say half dal, half rice in your idlis, your khichdis, your pulavs. So you can bring in, sprouts like two bowls of dal, one bowl of curd. That's a good 5 servings of protein. Apart from that, you can bring in say 10 to 20 almonds. You can bring in 2 spoons of pumpkin and sunflower seeds, and that can give you more than 6 to 70 grams of protein per day. I hope that helps. For those who can't manage so much, can bring in 30 grams of a whey protein. But please look at, the added sugar content in the proteins. You must look at no sugar because we Indians don't need extra sugar. We are too much high on sugars.
Yes.
I hope this helps. Sanika?
Yes. I think that is all the questions that have come in. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time, and thank you so much, ma'am, for taking a very insightful session as well as an interesting Q&A discussion.
Thank you, dear. It was nice being with you all, and I hope that we can have more sessions where I can sensitize my doctor friends to include diet therapy as the first line of action for all the metabolic diseases, because that is the way forward. Lesser drugs, better health, and better lifestyles.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Take care. Bye. Good night.
Night.